Y'all, I am a mess today. I don't even know what's going on in my brain. I just feel like I have dust bunnies for brain today. It's a muddled mess up there. I can't think. I don't know if it's my age, menopause, or what it is. I don't think I'm tired. I have slept well the past couple of nights, but I had planned to get up early, get going, get my coffee, sit down, film, and get ready with me, answering your questions and make it engaging and entertaining. And my day is just not working that way. But then I figured, you know what? I have to get ready for work anyway, so why not just turn the camera on while I put on some makeup and see if I can salvage a little bit of this, answer these questions, and make it and just be real for you guys. Sometimes I spend a lot of time on my videos. I research and I plan and I reshoot and edit to give a nice tight message that has a lot of value. And if that's what you're looking for right now, this is not going to be one of those. But if you want real and you just want to get to know me a little bit better, then come on in and let's put on some makeup, because this is my happy place and this is how I de-stress. So if you are new here, my name is Tina, and I am really happy that you're here on the journey with us and that you'll take some time and stick around and see what goes on here. I promise that not every video is as scattered as this one has the potential to be. If it's a complete train wreck, you may not see it, but I am really just going to try to be real here and actually not even edit out as much as I normally do, because I think it's important to not just put forward that polished look, but also to show that some days your brain is just in a muddle and you just have to do what you have to do to get through. I am going to be using the products in my Shop My Stash basket, and I probably won't be talking a lot about the makeup because I did talk about these products in that video. So if you want to see more about the makeup itself, I'll link that Shop My Stash down below in the description box and you can go check that out. I will also list the products that I use down in the description box in case you miss something as it goes by. But what I am going to try to do is answer some questions that you all have left for me either in the comments, or I had an IG story up this morning about asking for some things that you wanted to know about me or about makeup, and so I'm going to try to do that as I get ready, and we'll just see how that goes. I am going to be using this Wet n Wild Impossible Primer, and it's just so weird because it's so dry. I mean, I squeezed out this little chunk, this little tube, but I can like hold it in my hand. It doesn't come apart. But if you can get it on your skin, it feels really nice, and it has kind of a slip to it, but it's not a silicone primer. There is no silicone in it. I do all kinds of content, but I primarily do makeup looks, get ready with me, but I'm also interested in exploring more about creativity and life after 50 lifestyle, finding out who we are again in this season of life after we're either done or almost done with raising families, learning to dream again, setting goals, and finding out what it is actually that we want to do with the next part of our lives. I do some hauls, but I'm not primarily a haul channel. I like trying new things, but I also like using what I have, and I am primarily drugstore focused. I do have a recent video about how to get high-end products at drugstore prices, and I will also link that one down below. I am going to use the Believe Beauty foundation, and I put a drop of each of the colors that I need to mix here on my makeup palette, aka my soap dish from the dollar store. My first question comes from Valerie B, and she asked, how did I learn to apply makeup? Well, I learned to apply makeup from my mom, who has been in Mary Kay since Mary Kay was a young company, way back in the 70s. And because I was a dancer, I actually started wearing makeup when I was about 3. And my mom, of course, did my makeup at that time, but I learned to apply makeup really early because one of my favorite things was playing in my mom's makeup. She had inventory and a sample kit, and she allowed me access to it. So my mom taught me how to apply makeup, and I guess I was probably about 12 or 13 when I started wearing makeup on a daily basis. And of course it was light and mostly blush, mascara, maybe a little bit of foundation. But as far as learning to apply makeup the way I do now, I got interested in the YouTube beauty space about 3.5 years ago when my daughter was planning her wedding, and she found some makeup videos and said, "Hey mom, these are really cool, you should watch them." And so I did, and then I realized that there were beauty YouTubers in the over 50 space. I think Angie was probably one of the first ones I found, and Mrs. Melissa M, and so many others. And after about a year, I had learned so much from these women, and I thought, you know, I think I could do this. But then I thought about it for like 2 more years before I actually did it. But I was just kind of scared. And then finally one day I just decided, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And I am so glad that I did, which is way more than you asked for, but I'm kind of rambly. I am going to use the Hard Candy Sheer Envy color corrector and get some of these dark circles under control. I'll just blend that actually with my finger because I want it to stay with good coverage, and sometimes a sponge will remove too much coverage. My second question is also from Valerie B, and she asked, do I like to cook, and if so, what? And the answer is no, not really. I do cook. We almost never go out to eat, so everything is pretty much cooked from scratch, but I cook very simply, and my daughter complains I don't know how to use seasonings. So I'm working on that, and most of it is I just really don't have time to cook. And I think if somebody told me what to cook every night, I would like it a lot more. And then I always forget to take something out of the freezer, so I get home from work and it's 6 o'clock and nothing's defrosted, and so I just reach for the staples that are easy, and so I'm kind of a boring cook. My concealer is the Essence Camouflage Matte Full Cover Concealer, and I'm going to kind of tap that in with my e.l.f. concealer brush and then let it set for just a second to get so that it dries down just a little bit, and then when I blend it with my e.l.f. concealer sponge, it won't remove too much coverage. Leslie from Leslie's Mature Makeup, I'll list her channel down below, asked, what is one makeup product I cannot live without? And I think that would have to be mascara. I have super blonde eyelashes, as you have probably noticed, and so without mascara, my eyes just kind of disappear into my face. If I'm not wearing any makeup at all and I have to go somewhere, I will at least put on a light coat of mascara just to define my eyes a little bit. So if I could only have one makeup product, man, that would be horrible, but it would be mascara. And now I'm going to take that e.l.f. concealer sponge and just blend that concealer into my foundation and get the excess product out of the creases. I'm going to powder using this 2-in-1 powder from SheGlam. It's Insta Ready Face and Under Eye Setting Powder Duo. It has a pressed powder in this part of the cap, and then if you unscrew it, it has a loose powder in that part. Valerie asked another question, do I have a career outside the home? And yes, I do. It is part-time. What is this on the end of my nose? Why didn't y'all tell me I had something on the end of my nose? I told you I'm a mess today. I think it was a chunk of that primer, which is a really big problem with that primer, is it's chunky and it falls apart, and so sometimes when you go to mush it to put it on your fingers, you end up with it in your lap. So even though it's a decent primer once you get it on your face, getting it on your face is not the easiest thing in the world to do. Career outside. So many squirrels today. So career outside the home. I am the executive director for our small town community theater, and it is a job that I absolutely love. I am pretty much responsible for anything related to the running of the theater, from finance to marketing, selling tickets, booking entertainers, cleaning toilets. It's me. It's a part-time job, which is perfect because I work in the afternoons and can still homeschool my daughter. I obviously have to be there on show weekends for shows and that sort of thing, but I just absolutely love it. When I was younger, I worked in the corporate world of finance and budgeting, and when I had my first child 28.5 years ago, I became a stay-at-home mom. And that's what I did for 23, 4, 5 years, something like that. I'm going to use the Essence Sun Club Matte Bronzing Powder. I had the e.l.f. Primer Infused Bronzer in my Shop My Stash, and I'm going to take this out because I've used it a couple of times, and it's just really too warm on me. I don't like the way it looks on me, so I'm going to declutter this, and I'm not going to keep using it because I don't like it. So I put this one in instead. And it's a better color, and it smells like summer. Okay, so I don't know how much of the bronzer you're gonna actually see because I got really rambly and really long. Basically, I homeschooled my kids for 20 some odd years, and then we needed some extra money, so I worked for a transcription company from home so I could continue to homeschool. And when my daughter got a little bit more independent, being able to complete some of her schoolwork without me, I was still transcribing, and I also started doing some substitute teaching, which was good because I could do 1 or 2 days a week and schedule her schooling so that the stuff she could do without me, she could do here. My husband worked on the farm at that time, so he was home. He wasn't able to be involved in the homeschooling, but he was here. And then at the end of 2019 is when our theater executive director retired, and I applied for and got that job. For blush, I'm going to use the Flower Beauty Blush Balm in Pinched, and I'm going to put a little bit on my hand here, and then use my stippling brush to kind of pounce it around like that, and put that on with the stippling brush. And yes, I've already put on powder, but I have found that this will go on over powder just fine, and it doesn't disturb anything underneath, and so it doesn't really matter. And I can never remember, oh, I'm going to use cream products today, so don't powder, because it's so ingrained in me to powder my foundation when I'm done. It just happens. So cream products need to be able to play nicely over powder for me to be able to use them, because otherwise I just forget. And this is a really pretty color. It's just a nice, warm, but light, kind of peachy nude sort of color. And then the next 2 questions kind of go together. One was from Valerie and one was from Andy of Andy Does Stuff. Again, any channel that I mentioned, I'm going to link down below. And 2 questions are, do I have any hobbies besides YouTube? And when did I become interested in theater, and how long have I been performing? So community theater is my hobby outside of YouTube. I love to perform, which might explain why I'm doing this with you. And I actually did not get involved in theater until I was an adult, but I have been performing, like I said, since I was 3 years old. My mom was a dancer, and she danced well into her 20s, and I was born when she was 20, so when she would go to dance class, I would go with her, and when I was old enough, she put me in one too, and she kind of says that I was a little bit of a klutz. And yeah, she's right, I got 3 scars under my chin from falling when I was a kid and landing on my chin and getting stitches in my chin. So the idea was that dance would help me be a little less klutzy, but it didn't really work. I could just fall more gracefully, I guess. And I'm going to interrupt that question to answer one from Mary, because I'm moving on to my eyes. And Mary asked, how do I keep eyeshadow from melting off my eyelids? And I don't know if you have oily or dry eyelids, Mary, but I have oily lids and I have to use an eyeshadow primer. There are several that have worked for me, but right now my very favorite is the e.l.f. Putty eyeshadow primer. They have several colors. For me, rose is the option. If you open it up, you're going to think, really? Why did she recommend this? It looks dry and like it's never going to work on your eyes. And if you try to put it on with a brush, or you just try to go in with your finger like that, you're not going to be happy. But what I do is I take a little bit out on my fingernail and I just rub my fingertips together like that. And as it warms up in the warmth of your fingers, it gets really creamy and emollient. And then when you put it on your eyes, it just smooths in really nicely. So you're going to want an eyeshadow primer, Mary. I know some people like the Milani. I don't, because I don't think it gives any coverage. I like to cover some of the veining and that sort of thing that I have in my eyelids, and the Milani is much sheerer than that. I did get this soft base eyeshadow primer from AOA Shop Miss A, and I did like this one. I thought it was very good. It does give a little bit. And I wouldn't actually recommend using foundation, because I think foundation is going to be more likely to crease and be affected by the oils on your eyelids. Some people use concealer with good effect. I think if you're going to use a concealer, maybe a matte concealer rather than an emollient one. And I've also heard of some people using the e.l.f. matte putty primer or the pore filling primer as a base. But the key is to set that base before you go in with your eyeshadow. I typically use an ivory colored eyeshadow or even a powder and set from the crease to the brow bone, because I want that to blend pretty smoothly, but I want to have more of a tacky base for shimmers on the lid. If you're going all matte, then I would set the whole thing. Okay, so back to performing. I was also a cheerleader and I was in show choir in high school, so I did a lot of performing. And then when my kids were born, I focused on them and I didn't really do any performing, and I didn't have as much of a creative outlook. Although homeschooling does take a lot of creativity. I'm not gonna short sell that. For eyeshadow today, I'm using this LA Colors Nude Quad in Bare It All, and I really like this little quad. I don't know this for a fact, but I think that it probably could be a little bit similar to a Charlotte Tilbury quad, and the colors just seem to be similar to what I've seen other YouTubers who have high-end products show. And the result that I get kind of looks like the result that they get, so I really like this. And while I can't remember what I paid for it because I've had it for a while, I'm pretty sure I got it at Dollar General for probably like $3.99, $2.99, something like that. And I will take that ivory shade and set my eyes the way I just told Mary that I was going to do. Now I will just give a little tap tap to make sure that there's no creases there before I set it. And yes, it's powdery, it flies everywhere, I don't care. So then how did I get back into performing? And that happened when we moved from a city to the farm where my husband grew up. My kids were like 11, 9, and 7, and we didn't have our fourth one yet. And the year after we were here, we had gone to a show at the theater, and my oldest saw that they were going to be doing Tom Sawyer and thought that that would be fun to try out for. And the other two weren't really wanting to be on stage, but they decided to see if they could help with the backstage work. So that was in 2004, and he got the part for Sid. I helped with costumes for that show. I was there all the time anyway, so, and we just loved it. And it became something that I could do with my kids. They loved it, I loved it. We weren't in another show until 2009, because in 2006 my fourth child was born, and so I was a little busy for a couple of years. But we did Annie in 2009, and so she was like 2.5. She spent a lot of rehearsals in a carrier on my back, and at 2 years old, she could sing every song in Annie. She was in her first play when she turned 5, and then that next year, she was still 5, but she was Gretel in Sound of Music, and she's been doing plays ever since, and she dances and that kind of stuff too. So we still do plays together. The two shimmers are kind of similar. One is just a little bit more gold, and one has a little bit more of a coppery look to it. And because I'm wearing this kind of burgundy top, I think I'm going to go with the more coppery look. And I'm just going to tap that onto my eyelid. Just all over. And then I'm going to use the lighter one just on the inner portion, just to kind of lighten up the inside. Like so. I started out performing in the choruses, and honestly sometimes I still prefer a chorus part because it is just so much fun. You get to be in all the big dance numbers, and you're on stage generally a lot, and you just get to have a lot of fun because you don't have a lot of lines to memorize, and so it's just fun. But it's also really fun having a lead. My first singing lead was as Elsa in Sound of Music. It took me until I was over 50 to be able to have the confidence to stand up in front of a group and sing a solo, to audition for a solo part. And I was terrified. I could barely breathe, much less sing. But I did it, and I was that terrified for every performance as well, but it got easier every time I did it. I'm going to use the darker burgundy color and just kind of deepen up the crease in the outer corner, but I'm not really doing a dramatic eye look or anything like that today. And I still get nervous when I go to an audition and I have to sing in front of a group of people, but it's just not the same. One of the reasons I had so much trouble singing a solo is because when I was a kid, somebody made an offhand comment that I had a great voice for being in a choir, but that I didn't really have a solo voice. And I believed them. So I've always really tried to be really careful about those kinds of comments, because you don't know what's going to stick and how it's going to affect somebody. And then I realized that I didn't want someone else to dictate what I could or couldn't do, and so I chose not to believe them anymore. I'm going to go back into that ivory color and just do a little blending on the edge. And I am so glad, because I have had so much fun being in plays, having leads, being in the chorus. I don't care where I get a part, I just want a part. But the other thing that I did that I never even imagined doing, I mean, I performed. So being in a play, especially a musical, wasn't that big of a stretch from being in show choir or something like that. But the thing that I never even imagined or thought about doing before was directing. I'm going to take a pencil brush and that deeper burgundy and line under my eyes with that. And so I'd been in several plays and met my very, very good friend Stephanie. Hey Stephanie, if you're watching. And my kids were in a play that she was directing, Little Princess. She runs a tight ship, let me tell you. And I had started getting the inkling that I would maybe like to learn how to direct. And when I saw how she did it, I wanted to learn from her. She's also my boss at the dance studio, by the way. So as the play was going on, I asked her if she would ever consider having an assistant, and I could just be her gopher and do the things that she needed me to do, and she thought that would be a good idea. So we teamed up and directed Wait Until Dark. It was a lot of fun. I am going to now use this Revolution Sunkiss highlighter that I shattered and repressed, but it's a really pretty gold highlight. I know a lot of people don't like Revolution, but they do have some good things. It was a great play to direct. We had a lot of fun, and we have been kind of a director team ever since. I'm using this right now, by the way, as an inner corner highlight, and then I'm going to also put it on my face. I just did the inner corner because I'm working on my eyes right now. And I'm going to bring that down just a little bit on that lower lash line. I have this little fan brush that I'm going to use for my face. So that's kind of my community theater performing story. So right now we're directing Cheaper by the Dozen. It just started rehearsals last week, and we have a great cast, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so I am going to go off camera and finish up my liner and my mascara and eyebrows, and I'll be right back. So just about the time I'm feeling like, okay, I've got this. This is good. I looked down and realized that I was supposed to use the LA Girl Brow Pomade because it was in my Shop My Stash. But out of habit, I reached over and grabbed the two eye pencils that I've been using, the Beige Brow Designer in Ash Brown and the AOA Studio Slim Brow in Caramel. I use the combination of these because this one's too dark and this one's too warm, but if I put them together, they work perfectly. And didn't use the brow pomade. I have been using the brow pomade more. It just isn't instinctual for me, and so I grabbed these. But I did use the purple Lash Princess, the sculpted volume one, and I used the LA Girl setting spray. Lips were a little harder because I wanted a darker color, but I have this burgundy top, and then I went with the coppery eye look, so it kind of needed to be a mix between them. So I used the Wet n Wild gel liner in Gone Burgundy, and then I put this Essence, not Flower, the Essence Semi-Matte Lippy in 02 Happy. And then I use this Persona Gloss in Honey, which has this little bit of a darker brown color to kind of tone down the burgundy and mesh the copper of the eyes with the burgundy of the top. I don't know if it worked, but I like the way it looks. So that's my look for today, and I'm hoping that sitting down and putting on makeup has kind of helped refocus my brain and calm me down a little bit, because I have a grant that I have to finish writing, and that does take a little bit of brain power. I hope that you all enjoyed coming along and learning a little bit about me, and that you got your makeup put on too, and you are ready for your day. Don't forget to take a second, hit that like button. I know I always forget if I'm not reminded, so I hope I don't annoy you, but it really is important. If you're not subscribed, do that too, and hit the notification bell, select all so that you won't miss any of my future uploads. Have a blessed, beautiful day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.